One of my founders, much older gentleman, I used to always say he was my wisdom at the table. So we walk into the room, and of course, my co-founder over here gets addressed as though he's the CEO and all that. And I loved it because he'd go, "Don't talk to me, talk to her." That happens a lot. Like, "Oh God, you're CEO. I didn't know." In fact, I was at an event the other day. I was talking to another CEO. Mind you, it's only CEOs at this event. The rest of the evening, I was asked, "So do you work for that company?" I was like, "I was just talking to the CEO." No, we're viewed as a risk versus men are viewed as growth. So you will see it in the questions that are asked of a female founder versus a male founder.
Why is that?
Oh, because they don't understand how to invest in women. I don't know this, therefore it's risky. They actually apply the risk to me when it's actually them that are probably the ones that'd be risky if they invested because they don't know how to control or work with the women.
Rebekah, welcome to Tech Scenes Unplugged.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I've been looking forward to having this conversation since the last time we talked. Well, for the people that don't know, let's start from the top. Tell me about Numeracle.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Rebekah Johnson. I am the founder and CEO of Numeracle, launched coming up on an anniversary, January 1st of 2018. Really, it was a response to decisions that were made by the FCC. So I sat on the FCC's Robocalls strike force. We all get those horrible, unwanted spam calls on our phones. This is a problem all over the world. And I was a part of the group that actually published a report and made decisions on how, at least in the United States, that we as an industry, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint at the time, all carriers were going to block or label calls so that consumers could be protected. Unfortunately, I also know the technology of all of that, and I kept raising a red flag going, this is a really bad idea. We're going to start to block the wanted calls, the calls from your hospital, the calls from the banks. And I was right. Everything I predicted came true. So that's how I launched Numeracle. It was a response to that problem. So our services, we sell them to businesses. It's a B2B company, and it's really about identity. So we verify the identity of the business. It could be a government agency. It could be a university. It could be your hospital. Once we have their identity established, we associate it with their telephone numbers, and we exchange that data with the carriers so they can make informed decisions on whether or not that is a good call or a bad call. Very simple, but it was a lot of work, and it's kind of complicated to maintain.
Right. Well, can I just first start by saying thank you? Thank you, because that is the most annoying thing. My phone's always ringing, and I'm just at a point where I just don't even answer it if it's someone I don't know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it kind of goes bad sometimes when your doctor's calling you or something, your bank's calling you for real, and it's hard to know. So it's really hard to know. So let's say my bank is calling me. Is it going to be in the future that I'll actually know it's really my bank and I can confirm it's my bank? Like, how would I know that?
Yes. So that's actually the latest technology that T-Mobile was the first. They're the pioneer in delivering and rendering identity information. So this required Apple, Motorola, and Samsung to actually update the devices. I mean, when's the last time the display of your phone ringing looked anything different than it has since you got your phone? Okay, let's talk about from BlackBerries over to iPhones, right?
Right.
I loved BlackBerry. God, you had to rip it out of my hands. But eventually I went over into the iPhone world. And so the way that it's displayed hasn't changed in decades. So the devices have been updated to take the identity information. Numeracle will attach it to a call. It actually gets delivered through the network, through an IP infrastructure, and then the carrier will deliver that information over to the device. So Apple, Motorola, and Samsung actually all look different on the call displays. What will be common is there will be a logo that is presented. There will be a green verification check mark. Apple's not there yet. The other ones are there. But in your call log on an Apple device, you'll see the check mark. If you look on your phones today, you're going to see those check marks. And then there might be a call reason and then a name. What's unique about this solution is that it cannot be spoofed by a bad actor. So it cannot be used for impersonation, which is, we're really just trying to devalue that channel for fraudulent actors. And identity is the only way to do it.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. So like sometimes people can spoof emails and it looks like it's coming from someone, but you won't be able to spoof a phone number.
Nope. No. Now the call will probably still go through, but it will not have that rich information and you won't have those verifiers with the call.
So once you have a verified call, then you know that it's what it is and you can answer it, but you're not going to stop. It's not going to be able to stop all calls from coming through. So
no. And really, I mean, I would never sit here and say we can stop bad guys. They will always persist and they will change their strategies. So my goal is truly to devalue the voice channel. The only bad thing is that they will jump to other channels, and we're seeing this, and they'll jump over to channels that are not regulated, like WhatsApp and Facebook. So then we're just all dependent upon those companies to do the right thing, which is usually not the way it goes.
So are you guys B2B? Are you B2B2C, or what's that look like? And what's
just B2B?
Okay.
Yeah, just B2B. Look, I have no experience in consumer side. I don't even know where I would start.
Yeah. And so the product is selling to organizations that want to confirm their identity.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Correct.
Why Numeracle? I mean, you took on like a really hard thing. And I believe when your first product that you felt like the market needed, you couldn't get that moving, and then you like revamped and came back out, right?
Right. If you're a parent, you know this, like when you're talking to your teen and you're like, this is the obvious right thing to do. You should do X, Y, and Z. And they usually just want to do anything. And so you eventually go, just one step, just go clean your room. We'll just start there. Like put away the clothes, that's step one. So yeah, this was a huge lesson. My background is in communications. I'm an engineer by trade. I know the infrastructure for communication. So I put a lot into the right solution. And it was the solution that not only solved the problem, but I thought, it could also do all these other things. It was additional data. It was additional insights. And when I tried to sell that, it was just too complicated, because the reality was that my buyer wasn't even aware of the problem. So I learned very quickly, I got to step it back. We're going to have to do education before we can move into the awareness phase. So there was a lot of speaking, meeting with the FCC as well. I had to educate the FCC on what was happening in the market, educating the carriers on what's happening in the market. And then once they were educated and realized that there was a problem, then I would actually teach the market how to see the symptoms of this problem. And that would be your contact rates are going down. You're not getting the same customer response, or even customers are saying, that's weird. I answered your call, but you look like spam. So you'd have to field information from your agents. So bringing them through those processes, then we deployed a solution. And that was where I learned I just need to remove the spam label. It was like, that's just a simple thing. And I kind of took it as a hit against my ego, because I thought, I could do all these things for you and I know how I can help you. But the customer they weren't ready to receive that. Now we're there in 2024. The buyer is educated. The buyer is aware, and I have competitors now. So it's a different market to sell into. And now it is about providing more solutions.
And I would guess that this is costing millions and millions of dollars to these organizations when they can't reach out to their customer. And their customer doesn't know if it's them. I would have to imagine the call center volumes and the customer experience, all that would cost millions of dollars for some of these organizations.
It does. And we absolutely it's important to us that our customers see a return on the investment. It's a theme that I say in my company is a customer gives us $1, we better be giving back two.
Right.
It needs to have value, and I don't want the customer where there is no value. It's not the kind of business I want to be in. So we have done several case studies, and every case study, the solution pays for itself.
Right.
I usually make the joke, oh God, I need to increase my rates
Right.
because I am saving them quite a bit. But it's just one of those things that you just have to have. I mean, I get the emotions around it. It's frustrating to have this other party say that your call is spam and they're interfering with your relationship with your customers. So
Right.
the first reaction is just stop it. But it's just not that easy. And yes, you do have to pay to stop it. That's just the process of it. But the costs are really low to be able to solve that problem.
And I think there's probably revenue generating opportunities with some of these, call centers that are upselling or trying to find the right solution for their customers. And if they can't get through and can't have those conversations, they can't help them. So there's probably an expense and a profit side of this for these customers.
Yeah, some call centers are structured on a sales per hour. So it's really up to the call center to be efficient. They may be able to be effective with just 20 agents instead of 50 agents that maybe one of their competitors would have. So call centers especially leverage the solution because it just removes any hurdle that might be impacting your effectiveness. And it's cost effective to do it. So if you're smart about how you're running your call center, you get to benefit all the efficiencies while you continue to maintain your current price with your customer.
Right. And why this for you? Like, what drove you to do this? What compelled you to do this? You could have chose something a lot easier.
Oh gosh, yeah, and not so like nerdy. It's just it's phone calls. So I really it was a calling, and it actually started as a calling. And it's great. Yeah, it was literally a phone call. I got a phone call from Verizon's regulatory counsel, who was also on the FCC strike force, and he said, yeah, everything you said was going to happen is happening, and we're taking your stance. What do we do? And that's like, okay, lesson learned. If you have a strong opinion about something, be prepared to solve it and not just complain about it. So that's when I decided, okay, I the only person in the world that knows this right now. I was the only one that knew the problem was coming, and I'm the only one that seems to know how to solve it. So it was a moral and ethical thing that I had to do it because especially when I thought about medical calls, I just couldn't live with myself if I said no to it. I just can't imagine where we would be in this country if I hadn't, taken that very scary, terrifying journey of launching a company and not really knowing what the future looked like more than a couple of weeks ahead of me.
Yeah, I can relate. A lot of times I think like, why did I choose what I'm doing? And it's really a calling. I look and there's a lot of other easy things I could have done, right? So let's make an operating system for high growth companies that have no blueprint. I don't know why. Talk about nerdy. All right. I think I trumped you on the nerdiness.
You did. I'm going to let you have that.
And I'm obsessed with it. You ask me a couple questions, I'll go 100 miles an hour. So, but I can really get, and I think it's really funny that you use the word calling for what you do. So that's funny.
It's just your purpose in life. And it is kind of exciting when you finally kind of come across the threshold of that. I think we all have that moment.
Right.
But it's just us to respond to it. And I totally get people who have that moment and it's just too terrifying, and that's okay. I think life will come back to you again with another opportunity.
Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about is your fundraising experience. You didn't have that.
Not start it with FUN. It's never made sense to me.
But I love your fundraising story because the result of it really benefited you in the end.
It did. It did.
So can you tell me a little bit about it and share what happened?
Yeah. So, starting the company, I was 38 years old, a couple of kids by that point in elementary school. And I thought I'd never started a company, but it just seemed like, I have to go do a fundraise. That was just what I thought the first step was. So Jeff, we went through, I was over 100. I have the list. I have the Excel file of everybody and how it ended and what response. I'll put it in the appendix of my book, just so you can see all the names and who said what to me. And then I started getting into those dog and pony show fundraisers where I quickly learned that I was the entertainment and I was paying for my travel and I was paying for my time. And it's fine. I was okay with rejection. It honestly just doesn't. I move on to the next thing. I don't care. Moving on. But I walked out of one of those dog and pony shows where everybody was just like, "Oh, you're awesome. You're great." And I'm like, "Okay, let's talk term sheet. Like, let's talk investment." No, didn't seem to be what their focus was. So I walked out of that building, and it was in Boston, and I had the long Amtrak ride back to DC, and I just walked out of that room and I said, forget it. I'm not doing this anymore. My time is precious and I'm going to focus on the company. So my first year was $167,000. You can literally see on our revenue growth chart the moment that I decided I'm just going to put all my energy into selling the solution and focusing on the market. And the next year was 800,000. So it very clearly, if you put your time and effort into the solution, you'll get your returns. And then it just becomes a matter of, the bootstrap world, right? Manage your cash flow, make really good decisions, get creative on your marketing.
Build a real business.
Yes. Which there's not as much talk about that. It's just fundraise.
Right. And I think it's important. Sometimes I think we need to get to that stage where we just had enough. We just had enough. And then we're like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to go heads down and I'm going to build. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Well, you eventually fundraised. And I'm sure you were able to keep a lot more equity after proving this. And so I think, a lot of people think they need to fundraise right away. But I mean, I think if you can really focus on always building a great business, you'll be able to fundraise. And if you continue to think about building a great business, eventually you'll be able to sell that business. But if you think about all you want to do is fundraise or all you want to do is sell a business, you probably won't get there.
Right. And I think you also have to, you got to believe in your idea. I never once entertained the concept that this would fail. And I always told myself, if I fail, it's because of me and it's not because of the market or the opportunity or even the solution. It would have been me giving up. That was the only way this was going to fail. So that gave me a lot of confidence and to continue proceeding forward because I'd look around and go, nobody else is solving. Nobody else is solving. And this is a real problem. So you can get some encouragement just from the idea and the concept that you have. And it keeps you going and going. So that speaks to anybody that's listening. That was definitely the case for me.
Well, I think that's an interesting philosophy. Now you've grown from 1 to 70 employees, US and India?
Yeah, US, India, Canada, and Pakistan.
Do you still have that philosophy about if this is going to fail, it's me? Or is it now, if this is going to fail, it's us?
Well, I will always still take it from me. I just can't, I'm the leader. I set the vision, I set the direction, and I have to hire the right leaders that believe in the same vision, believe in the same direction, and I can lean on them and depend on them. And when there's a leader that comes in that doesn't align to that, I got to be quick and act on removing that. We didn't talk about this in our prep, but that is one of the things I am so shocked that I come across quite often are other CEO founders who are complaining about their underperforming leader. And I'm just like, why do you keep them on? I will never let somebody impact my equity. Like, I'm just so protective of that. Why would you let them hang around? So I don't know. Maybe that's just unique to me, but don't mess with my equity.
I think some teams and some leaders just don't know how to understand if they're really in alignment. And I think they slowly find out they're not in alignment, or they maybe didn't do the right work about creating that alignment. And oftentimes you can see that when you feel like we're not focused, because I really believe that you have to have alignment. We have to agree on where we're going, what we need to do, how we're going to do it before that's alignment. And then we can focus on those things. And I think I see even second time, third time founders sometimes fail at that, where they think they can just get the great people around the table and they can go, but you have to get the right people around the table, do the work to create the alignment, which can sometimes be hard, challenging conversations.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes you have to understand how much inputs you need to give and how much
Yep.
inputs you need to take back to make sure that
Yep.
we're all in alignment. But I think that's
Yep.
where a lot of people slowly figure out maybe we don't have the right people.
Right. And your
And it's
founding
challenging.
team is totally different than your hires, 7, 8 years down the road. The founding team is so critical, and my founding team's still with me. They're my ride or die. Like
Yep.
I've never trusted people so much, and we lean on each other. We respect each other. I don't ever feel like I'm above them and what I say they must do. I let them talk. I mean, we had our strategy meeting in August, and I loved it because I just sat in the back.
Yep.
And I just watched the conversations between the marketing, sales, tech, client engagement. They were doing all the talking, all the problem solving. And the only role that I played was if they seemed to have someone ask them a particular question to get them back, in the flow. That's all I did. Throw in the questions. And it was a moment. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And if you have it with your team, you can achieve anything.
Yeah. I think having the structure and giving them the time to have those conversations are really important. And I think a lot of people think it's staying up late, working on that presentation or, traveling to get, I think that the most difficult stuff is when you're together and you're trying to talk things out and define what the core issues are and solve them and move forward. And, I think that's the hard work. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, the most organized teams always win. They're the ones building the real businesses, and they're focused on the right things, and they're willing to accept if they're not right. Yeah. That doesn't matter as much as that we figure it out together and we move forward, I think.
Right. You touched on something, Jeff, that is near and dear to my heart about the efficiency. So I tend to, when I'm on LinkedIn, kind of call out posts by startups or founders that talk about, we're working 16-hour days and my team has to work the weekends. I'm here to say I started my company as a single mom of elementary age children. I didn't have to work all day and all night. I would drop the children off in the morning. I'd actually get in a workout routine. I'd go to Panera Bread or Starbucks. I'd work till 3 p.m. because I had to be back to pick up my children. And then I focused on them. Right. And what I learned very quickly is I need to do the absolute most with my time. I didn't get distracted with other things. I didn't get lost in weird thoughts. I didn't build products that were not useful. It was very deliberate and strategic with the time that I had. And so I've carried that over into the company now as 70 employees. Mental health. I never want to hear a single employee that sacrificed Thanksgiving lunch at the school with their kids, that sacrificed being there for their partners, even being there for their pets. We don't need it. I just call that a weak leader. And not a very efficient worker if you actually need that many hours to get the job done. What are you doing wrong?
Right.
So
that I totally believe that. I'm very efficient as well with my time, and I don't like anything to waste my time because I think my time is the most precious thing. So if I get in environments where I feel like my time is being wasted, I kind of turn into that alpha personality of nope. We're let's get this organized. Let's get this done. So I think that's really important. And to cascade that down into organization, I think is really important. I always kind of look at organizations. The CEO's job is to allocate resources, almost like an investor. We need to put energy here, 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 and here. It could be people, and they run along that timeline. But you have to understand that these people have only so much energy. Correct. And if you're not careful with directing and collaborating where we should focus our time and our energy, oftentimes those people get burnt out.
Absolutely.
And so not only we get burnt out, but they can get burnt out. And then what do? They go, maybe I don't want to keep on going on this journey, and maybe I'll find something else. Yep. And so being really cognizant of that, I think it's really important. And I think it starts with ourselves.
Yes.
to be
Yes.
cognizant of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then also demonstrate it to your employees as well. Getting my time away and my alone time is critical and important. Now, I will tell my executive team, which includes myself, that we don't always have the luxury to be able to 100% unplug, but let's
Right.
do everything that we can so that our employees can do that. They don't have the same burden and responsibility that we as leaders do. So, and they understand that and we all respect it.
I think you're the first person I've talked to that it's a female single mom, elementary kids that decide to start a business.
So far, I'm the only one I know too.
I always tell my story was we already had a kid. We were remodeling a house, trying to sell it. Already was building a new house. I had another kid on the way. It's never a good time to start a business.
No, this was the worst time to start.
Yeah. There's never a good time to start. And there is something
isn't.
like when you go back to like, there's a calling. I really feel like all founders that I talk to can't really explain why they did it. There's just something that possessed them to do it. And they had to go and do it.
Yep.
Now
Where there's a will, there's a way. And that's what we do.
Exactly. Now, growing from 1 to 70, what were some of those biggest lessons that you learned? Because that's a lot of growth really quickly.
It is a lot of growth. I'll start. And we didn't really talk about this, but my biggest fear when it comes to growth, which is something that kind of puts the boundaries for how I manage growth, is hiring more than my cash flow can handle. I had never missed a payroll, not once, since day one. And, bringing on the right resources and not over hiring, I think is so critical. So every resource we have in the company, their value and what they work on can be articulated by any leader. So part of that growth, just because you're growing doesn't mean a bad thing, but you've got to be very aware of who you're bringing on, know what their capacity is, their work capacity. I like to work people. Let's say you go full capacity. If you're overloading for at least a solid month and you come back and say, I don't see this ever releasing, like I'm not going to go back to the way I was, that's the time to hire that. And you got to detail exactly what we need this new person to do. How much time will they be dedicating? It shouldn't be a 10-hour-a-week type of job. So, being very aware of that and not just quick to hire. I never want to be in a position where I have to let people go because, oops, we hired too many people, which often happens when you do a big fundraise. That's kind of part of it. I'll just hire a bunch of heads, so we'll be good. So, it's just that discipline and awareness as you grow to make sure that everybody is contributing value.
Yep.
Because we humans want to contribute value. Nobody wants to stay here if they don't feel like they're doing anything of value to the company. So that's just, one of my, things for people to just slow down and really articulate and understand why you need to hire another person.
Right. I think a lot of people do make that mistake. They raise money. You ask what they're going to do with it. They say, we're going to scale, which means they hire people. And one of the things that I noticed, and one of the things that we do with our teams, with the peak operating system, is defining that 3-year vision. So we have the mission statement that's big, lofty, or cause, purpose, or belief. And then a lot of people will create their 1-year plan, but oftentimes it's just really a budget. And they kind of miss like what a plan is. And so we like to do the 3-year vision. We do it functionally. So what's success look like 3 years out in each of the functional areas of the business?
It's great.
And we do that not to create silos, but just to create focus within each one of those teams. We also do that at the 1-year plan level, 3 objectives or 5 objectives in each functional area. Having those 2 focal points and 3 focal points with the mission statement can allow you to talent map. Allow you to go, okay,
I like that word.
By the time that we get to that 3-year vision, I can see the difference between our 1-year plan and 3-year vision. What types of talent, what types of people do we need to actually get us there? And then now we have not only alignment, we also have clarity on who we're hiring because we know where we're going. And the best part about that, what I really love about this, and the point that I'm trying to make, is you can make a quick little PowerPoint presentation. When you're hiring people, you can show this is the group you're going to work in. You're going to work in sales. This is our goals for this year. And this is where we're going to be 3 years. And they can see themselves in that role. And you can also see themselves, the value in that role. And I think some teams just miss that. They don't do that work to really understand clarity within teams. And then as they're working throughout the year with that 1-year plan, it's an anchor to your OKRs every 90 days. So we know what we want to get done. Now we can create smart OKRs that get us to those goals. But I see a lot of teams, they get money and they're like, okay, we just hire a bunch of salespeople. We need more engineers and we need this and that. And they hire wrong when they maybe probably needed 3 more product people, not 6 more engineers.
I'd say they also fund wrong. That was one of the challenges for my fundraising, was going out there and the investors going, your seed, your Series A, just back and forth. And we were kind of an odd one for them to be able to fit in the bucket. So then that problem becomes, you're right in our revenue mark, but we write checks for $20 million. And I'd always respond, I couldn't tell you what I would do with $20 million. Like, I don't want your money. It was just this weird thing. And I'm like, do you really give money to people who can't articulate what they're going to do with those funds? And I found it absurd to, I was like, I only need maybe 6 million. Maybe I can go just a little bit less than that. And it was like, I don't know what to do with those funds. So I also think it's I'm older. I'm also older, and I've lived on a budget, my personal budget, and I don't waste. Right, I clean the Ziploc bags and reuse. That's what my mom taught me. Right. So just to throw money away, and then I just feel like it's not respectful of the humans, the individuals that you end up hiring, because they're nothing more than a number to begin with, which is why you started hiring, and then they're just a number when you need to get rid of it. And I just it's just not responsible.
I think it's important that you raise the right amount of money for all the investors and all the employees. Having the right amount elements on the cap table and done properly is best for everybody. And you unless you need to grow really fast, and then you probably need that money, and then you can justify the people and the speed in which you're going to do it. What was one of the lessons learned actually when you went out to finally raise? Like, what was maybe something that you thought was one thing and then you learned it was something totally different?
I'm actually really happy with the group that we ended up with, and they kind of broke the mold for everyone else up to that point. So that would have been my happy find. They were so informed. It became very obvious how much they researched on me as a person in the industry. They did background checks. I'm here in DC. I work with the FCC, FTC, state AGs, all of them, Department of Justice, right? Like, so I'm go down to the Hill, do my usual things with Congress members. So, they did do all of the research. And when they came time for term sheet, they did a presentation on what they knew of us, what they knew of the solution, and what they knew of the market. And nobody had ever articulated it back to me in a way where I felt like they were equal sitting across the table from me. So it was nice to finally find someone that actually put in that effort, because one of the things that would happen is that I'd sit at a table with investors and they say, oh, we have a telecom person. And I'm like, oh, great. They haven't touched telecom in 20 years. And it's like, it's changed. It's changed. And then I would just end up in this cycle of like arguing with this person because I didn't like the fact that I knew more than them. And so I would just very quickly go, hey, looks like you'd like to learn a little bit more of where the market's at. Why don't we just have that conversation later? If you're interested, I'd like to go back to discussing the investment opportunity. That person never came back to me. They wouldn't. It was just a showboat around the table as we're talking. So
they're trying to show their value. They're trying to show their value by
every time. Yep. It happens a lot. So that was my nice find, was the group we finally landed with.
Challenges as a female founder raising capital? Do you think, was there challenges with that?
100%. I mean, I walked in on one of my founders, much older gentleman. I used to always say he was my wisdom at the table. Learned a lot from him. He was in his 70s. Most people wouldn't take up someone that's old in their terms, but he had a wealth of knowledge, and I really appreciated that. So we walk into the room, and of course, my founder over here, my co-founder over here gets addressed as though he's the CEO and all that. And I loved it because he'd go, don't talk to me, talk to her. That happens a lot. Like, oh God, I didn't know. In fact, I was at an event the other day, and this still happens. I was talking to another CEO, and the rest of the entire evening, mind you, it's only CEOs at this event. The rest of the evening, I was asked, so do you work for that company? I was like, I was just talking to the CEO. No, I am my own founder. And I was like, shocking. But yeah, I mean, we're treated differently. I mean, the main thing here for women is we're viewed as a risk versus men are viewed as growth. So you will see it in the questions that are asked of a female founder versus a male founder. They're going to talk about all of the upside to the company. They'll talk about the upside to the market. With a female, they're going to talk more about the risks and the challenges that come with it. And there's studies on this. So what I have to do, well, because they don't understand how to invest in women. I think it's just naturally like, I don't know this, therefore it's risky. They actually apply the risk to me when it's actually them that are probably the ones that'd be risky if they invested because they don't know how to control or work with the women.
Right.
But, I had to prove my success. I had to get to 8 million ARR before anybody would actually consider me valuable. And that's not the story of men who just have ideas and concepts and will get the funding. Now, that's not a broad stroke across the board, but I live the statistics. I don't make them. So 2% of funding goes to women. So if you have a problem with that number and what I'm saying, then people can make a difference in it. So, and I do plan to. My once I'm done with this, and let's say we have an exit, I actually want to invest in single moms, and it's got to be a single mom. Yep, because no single mom ever thinks that her idea she would ever have the time, but you can. You can do it. So, that's just part of it.
It's not an easy thing. I can't imagine. Like, it was hard for me, and I was supported by my wife. Right? It was hard, like really hard to do this. And I still had a support system, someone that was helping more with the family than I was. So I could do that. So like, I applaud you. It's you Thank really you. Threaded the needle, and you got a workout in and made it to Starbucks. I think that's even better.
Yeah, I did what I could, but I mean, my parents were amazing. They supported me. Now, moving to Virginia, I lived in Alabama on a farm, and then moved to Virginia and didn't know anybody. That was terrifying. That was all within the first year. But my support group that I have met here, in DC, there's a lot of women founders and CEOs here. So getting a friend group was huge to help me be able to, do the company. So you eventually find support.
Right. You find your
Don't
people.
Be afraid to ask for it. Yes. Don't be afraid to ask for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I only have one question left for you. I've asked you a lot of questions, and I appreciate it. The last question is probably one of the most important questions. So I hope you're ready for this, but it's a scenario. So this is the scenario.
Okay.
You are trapped on a desert island the rest of your life, and it's a tropical, beautiful island. So I hope you like tropics because you're there for a very long time. You have food and water and shelter, everything, maybe even healthcare. So you don't have to worry about anything. But the one thing that you don't have is entertainment. You have no entertainment at all. However, an old 80s boombox drifts ashore and it has unlimited batteries, but you only can bring one cassette tape to listen to the rest of your life.
Okay.
Now, it can be of any genre. I know I said it was an 80s boombox, but it can be of any genre, any time frame. What is that one album that you're going to listen to the rest of your life?
Oh, it's going to be Whitney Houston because I can dance by myself and have my own entertainment. I'll just sit there and sing, I want to dance with somebody.
Or the best hits? The best hits? Or what? Yes. Is there one album? I don't know any Whitney Houston album names.
Honestly, I don't know the album names, but I grew up on Whitney Houston blasting those songs. I had the cassette tapes. Yes, I did. And I missed her. Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, those impacted me when they are no longer here, but just Whitney Houston. Gosh.
Oh, I did have
and
Michael
girls.
Jackson on a cassette tape in a boombox when I was a kid. I absolutely
Nice.
had that.
Well, come on, you had to make your own mixtape, right? I mean, then you'd share the mixtape with your friends, and hopefully they didn't ruin it, but they'd have to make you a new mixtape and, catch it on the radio, right? Like, they're going to play the song. Hold on. I'm going to hit record.
You sit there, record with the pause on, so you unpause it, so you got it to go, right?
Click, click.
That's awesome. I think that's the first Whitney Houston that I've heard, and that is a great answer. That's a great answer, because you can try to sing that the rest of your life too, and try to get as good as her. And
there's no one to give an opinion if I'm all by myself, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks for joining me on Tech Scenes, Rebekah. Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
This is great. I learned a lot from you too, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. Awesome.